Morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, whatever it happens to be for you. As promised, this is the live weekly wrangle that I mentioned is happening at the end of each month. And so the format for this is something that I'm still figuring out. I'm generally imagining some industry news. I have a question prompt for you guys to get conversation going in the chat. And it just allows me to get to know you guys a little bit better. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, offer you guys a question for the day. I'll leave this up here, but the big news that I want to share, what's been happening lately, is the fact that Houdini 19 will be releasing in a couple of days. I'm sure most of you who are Houdini artists have heard of this, have perhaps seen the trailer. It's really exciting stuff. I've had the opportunity to mess around with that a little bit, put together some tutorials. I think right now I'm at about maybe 2 hours of free content that I'm about to publish once Houdini 19 comes out. So that's going to be really awesome. It's been a while since I posted some tutorials on Houdini, so that's going to be really great. And besides that, I've been also working on Pyro 3 for the next big course release. So that's kind of what's been happening over here. But yeah, what are your impressions of Houdini 19 so far? Is it positive? Is it negative? Does it have the features that you've been hoping for? Does it seem to be lacking in certain features? What I want to do to start us off here is to hop over to an article which goes over some of the major categories of what's being released. So allow me to share my screen real quick, and we can check that out. So obviously, if you haven't checked out the launch reveal, definitely need to check that out. In my opinion, I guess I'll answer this question right now. My impression of Houdini 19 is that so far it seems to be pretty awesome. In what they've shown in the release and what I've experimented with myself thus far, it seems to be a pretty solid set of features. And what I like about Houdini 19 is that I don't think that side effects overextended themselves like they did in 18. 18, I don't know if you guys remember, but it kind of started off as, Solaris USD was, kind of advertised as a full ready to go system, but it wasn't really that way. So in Houdini 19, I think SideFX did a much better job at only releasing stuff that was much more polished and ready to go. So we have various features here. Solaris for layouts and environments, that brush-based framework for large-scale set dressing. That was probably one of my favorite features, honestly, where they did like the moss and the different trees and the rock painting tools and things like that. That was super awesome. PDG asset creation of layout asset gallery. This is super nice as well. It's amazing how many packages don't think about adding a little screenshot for a thumbnail. So that's really nice. And yeah, we have a comprehensive Houdini scene importer. We have Karma. Actually, the little series that I'll be releasing here is going to be all about Karma. It's about 3 or 4 videos where I do a crash course on how to get going with it, kind of the new features, how to use it, and my overall impressions. So be on the lookout for that. And honestly, I think that this has been a pretty big focus for KenFX, muscle developments. Grooming is, I think they had a few features for grooming, but nothing too crazy. But definitely KenFX was a big focus as well. So this is from Patrick B. I am hyped. Love to inspect the new muscle system. Yeah, me too. I don't do a whole lot of character effects at the moment, but where they're going on that is pretty awesome. And it looks like, yes, also the new Vellum multi-solver sounds interesting, along with viewport updates. Yeah, so I totally agree with you, Patrick. You know, where I think SideFX is going with all this stuff right now is to compete directly with Maya. And I'm happy to see that. Because right now, in my opinion, the only justifiable reason why a studio would use Maya is simply because that's what animators are used to. That's where the normal environment is. And so it's exciting to see SideFX go straight for the kill with this muscle stuff. And, you know, it was really cool to see as well all that secondary animation simulation stuff. I think that's really smart of them to do because, gosh, if Autodesk and Maya tried to do some of these physics-based secondary animation tools, it would be a disaster. And I think that's where they might get them, honestly. They have to make the viewport really friendly for animators, so it'll be interesting to see if they actually pull that off. But yeah, I mean, I think that they can totally do it. And I think, I don't know what their timeline is like, honestly, but if they can get that together in the next 2-3 years, that would be amazing. One of the reasons why I aligned myself with Houdini in the first place was just to, you know, eventually see it take over Maya as the main software that people use. And I think it's going to get there, honestly. So anyway, yeah, that's some really good stuff. As far as what I'm looking forward to, thus far, well, okay, so lately I've been doing a lot of Pyro volume-based stuff, and it doesn't say it in here, but there's a lot of really good VDB tools that are being released with Houdini 19. And actually, I have a couple of quick tips that go over that. But, you know, if you guys have used VDBs before, it's kind of a hassle. It's like, you know, the VDB documentation and, you know, just the whole system they have is a bit of a learning curve. So they actually have some VDB tools that'll be releasing here as well that didn't get highlighted as much that I'm actually really excited about. So anyway, that's a bit about Houdini 19 for right now. If we take a look at some other industry news, we also have Epic Games announcing a partnership with 2 indie teams. So it looks like it's going to help Spryfox and the new studio's Eyes Out publish their games. I've never heard of Spryfox or Eyes Out, to be honest with you. It looks like it's a partnership. It's not an acquisition. So that's interesting. But based on the screenshot, it looks like they kind of do some stylized, almost anime-looking work here. which I think is a very underutilized aesthetic for video games. So I think that'll be really cool. Something to keep an eye on for sure. Whenever they have these sort of partnerships going on, to me, if I was trying to get a job in games, I'd be like, ooh, yeah, okay, that's cool because these two indie studios now have some support. They now have the ability to hire some people, perhaps, for a decent rate and actually put out some good stuff. So for all of you game developers out there, this could be an interesting opportunity to work at one of these studios. Also, Apple joined the Blender Development Fund. So Apple is one of many of the titans to recently endorse Blender, which is interesting because there's a lot of folks who say that Blender is going to become the industry standard. And, like overtaking Maya. And that kind of goes against what I was saying with Houdini filling that role, but kind of, in a way. I still think that at the end of the day, Blender just doesn't have the same sophistication that Houdini does. However, I think for basic tasks like destructive modeling, just asset creation in general, maybe even as a generalist tool for small studios, Blender absolutely kicks ass. And I'm really happy to see all these big companies piling on with Blender as well. If I was starting a new studio and I didn't have a huge budget and, I was trying to just put out commercial stuff, I would absolutely try to make Blender one of the main centerpieces of a pipeline right now. It's still a little bit janky around the edges, that's true. But you can find artists who are probably really talented, looking for work, willing to work at an affordable price to put together a studio. So that's also one very underdeveloped area right now that I think, for those of you who might be considering opening your own studio, might be interested in going for. People say that I can only find artists to hire with Maya, but I just think that they're not really looking at Blender, to be honest with you. And so I think that that's kind of a myth, or that's kind of like what everyone's been saying for years, so they just keep saying it. The other thing too is that you only need to find one or two really good artists at Blender if you were to start a studio and actually get that going and have it be successful. I think that it's cool to see Apple joining the Blender Development Fund. I think if things keep going in that direction, then it's going to be really great for small studios. So moving on to some other stuff. I want to do some artist highlights as well. Let's check out some of these pieces that I found. All I really do here is I go to Instagram, and if I'm curious to see what people have been up to lately, I just type in hashtag side effects or hashtag Houdini. And every day, there's all kinds of cool stuff that pops up, including this one by Saint NFT, which actually, I guess this was done by this artist right here, Alessio De Vecchi. So, yeah, look at this thing. This thing is crazy. You got people like ragdolls crawling along the surface, and then they kind of fall off like that. I think the way that that's happening is that there's an attribute on particles in Houdini that allows you to actually stick on the surface of something, kind of like a raindrop, and then it eventually just falls down with gravity once it reaches a certain angle or a certain slope downwards. So I think that's how the crowds are actually sticking to the head and then just moving down and falling off. A really interesting use of that. You add a little bit of pyro to the mix as well. And this is just quite the hodgepodge of effects. Yeah, and then you even have this, really creepy blood fluid thing going on. I'm sure all the fine artists will love that kind of creepy stuff. Anything that's weird and creepy is something that the fine art community is going to love. But anyway, I thought this was pretty cool. Something to check out. I bet NFTs will sell like hotcakes with this thing. By the way, I don't know if you guys have ever actually like sold NFTs for a decent price. Have you guys ever had success with that? I'm kind of curious. I'm not thinking about entering NFTs myself at the moment. I was thinking about it for a minute, but I'm curious if you guys have. I've basically heard mixed results on that whole thing. So anyway, getting back to some other artwork. This is from Zarky. It's like this weird organic blob. Lots of weird organic looking blobs. So, you know, I personally am not too crazy about some of the. I think over time I'm getting a little bit burnt out over the abstract kind of Houdini art because there's a lot of it out there. But this one's pretty cool. I think that this one's nice. I like how the inspiration comes from like petri dishes and weird like germ formations, and yeah, stuff like this is super cool. But yeah, in general, I think it's cool. I don't know why I'm getting burnt out on it. I guess I'm in kind of more of a minimalist mood lately, which we have not right there, right here. And actually, I want to talk a little bit about minimalism with this for a second because I don't know what it is or why minimalism is so darn appealing sometimes. But like this right here is more appealing than all that complicated stuff that I just showed you. Now, I don't think that the execution of this is as good as the petri dish stuff that we just saw, to be honest with you. But just in terms of the overall aesthetic, there's just something super cool about this minimalist look. And I can't really put my finger on it as to why it's appealing to me right now. I think possibly with minimalism, it's all about like having that extra space. It's all about having this sort of, empty. Because like, look, when we take a gander at some of these other art pieces like this, there's just so much going on, and that complexity is really cool. But I think maybe the reason why I'm liking minimalism is because everyone tries to go super, super complex. And when somebody doesn't, that becomes really interesting. So, yeah, anyway, I guess on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have this kind of thing, which is just as cool. It's kind of like this gothic, complex, wiry figure here. But anyway, I think more and more, I'm just going to make some minimalistic renders with my quick tips because that's the mood I'm in. There was also one thing I want to show you. So this was released by Marius, and he updated all of his Mardini hip files for free, which is super cool. I was tempted to use one of these for a quick tip, but I figure, better ask him first about that. But yeah, I mean, take a look at this stuff. Really cool. It's not every day that people show you every detail of their work and how they think in a hip file. So definitely worth checking out. I mean, some of this stuff is really cool. And like I said, it's just a good opportunity to see how someone else thinks about Houdini and see how they do stuff. So yeah, that's good to know about. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, there was this interesting little hand thing that was redshift in Houdini. That's kind of cool. And we have a Nike sole right here, bit of grains. This almost has like a stop motion feel to it, which is really interesting. Yeah, something about the animation is almost like clay cartoonish, which is pretty sweet. And I think, yes, check this out. This is a really cool breakdown by 11.effects, which is, I think, a studio out of New Zealand. And yeah, this was like Megascans making a waterfall, some R&D. I was actually just playing around with the waterfall last night, and they're really difficult to make. But anyway, I want to share that with you guys. If you're looking for a breakdown of, how they put together this waterfall, that might be a cool thing to check out as well, just for your own benefits. And last but not least, there is a new tutorial, a wrap tutorial, where you can do shrink wrapping by Nick, who is a Cinema 4D artist who does Houdini stuff sometimes as well. I just stumbled upon this. I haven't talked with Nick at all, but I just thought I'd pass on that information to you guys because, who knows when you need to have a shrink wrapped plastic thing over an object. I guess it comes up every now and then. But anyway, shout out to my girlfriend, Jess. And, Patrick, I saw that, you're not really happy with your art to sell it as an NFT yet. And I totally feel that too. If I let myself be a perfectionist, I will, and then nothing ever gets released. So I'm right there with you. I was thinking as well, because I had the same thought with my stuff too. It's like a lot of what I do is tutorials, and what I do in a tutorial or a course is not what I can do if I didn't have to teach it. And so that's another reason why I'm also kind of like not into the NFTs, because I would actually have to like go full guns blazing for a little while to make something that I like. So I totally hear you there. But anyway, this is just kind of a live hangout, something a bit more casual. Like I said, the format's kind of open to whatever you guys might be interested in doing. If you guys have any artwork or critiques, I would even be open to doing some interviews with you guys if you would find that interesting. Any of that kind of stuff, let me know. My email is tyler@cgforge.com. You can always contact me through CGForge directly as well. And I think that it would be cool to take this live session stuff, have a bit of news, talk a little bit about 3D art, make it a bit more laid back, casual than the life advice, weekly wrangle stuff that I've been doing in the past, and make it more about the community and just talking about 3D stuff. So in the future, if you guys have any cool ideas or things that you'd like to contribute, I'm all ears. And I think for today, that about does it. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.